All right. So have you ever had that thing happen where like you're hearing someone talk,
Uh-huh.
but you're not really listening to what they're saying?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Yeah. So like your ears are working, they're doing their job,
Right.
but your brain has already wandered off to, think about what you're going to have for dinner later.
Totally guilty of that.
Yeah. And it turns out that there's a whole art to this listening thing.
It's true.
And today we are taking a deep dive into this source called Mastering the Art of Listening to figure out how to become like a master listener.
The true listening ninja.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this book is saying that it can transform the way you communicate with people, and it can even impact how you connect with people.
Yeah, it's funny because I think most people think
Nah.
that they're already pretty good listeners.
Yeah. Like you said, we all do it.
We all zone out sometimes.
Oh.
But this guide really reveals how big the gap is between just hearing and truly listening.
I am all ears because I have definitely been in those conversations where I'm nodding along and, seemingly paying attention.
Right.
But really, I'm thinking about like a million other things.
Exactly.
So what is the secret here?
Yeah, what's the secret sauce to listening?
Yeah. What does it really take to master this art of listening?
Well, the guide starts off talking about active listening,
Okay.
which is probably a term you've heard before.
Uh-huh.
But it goes beyond just the concept.
Right.
It dives into the mechanics of it. So picture this. You're in a high-stakes meeting at work,
Okay.
and a colleague throws out like a totally new idea. By actively listening, you're not just like passively absorbing their words.
Right.
Mastering the art of listening breaks this down into 5 key components.
Okay.
And if you can nail these components, you're not only understanding the idea, but you're grasping their motivations. You're anticipating roadblocks.
Wow.
And you're setting the stage for like a truly collaborative environment.
Okay, so I am sold on the importance of this active listening.
Good.
But for those of us who are still like stuck in that nodding and making mental grocery lists phase, can you break down those 5 components for us?
Yeah, no problem.
Like what really makes up active listening?
Okay, so the guide calls them out as paying attention,
Okay.
demonstrating that you understand withholding judgment,
Uh-huh.
responding appropriately, and remembering.
Okay, so that sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
But I could already tell that like each of those pieces has some serious depth to it.
definitely.
Yeah, you can't respond appropriately if you haven't actually understood what the person was saying.
Right. And that takes withholding judgment too.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, paying full attention in today's world
Oh my God.
with all the distractions,
Yeah.
that's like a Herculean effort in itself.
It really is. And that's where the guide gets so insightful.
Okay.
It digs into why listening is so darn hard in the first place. It's not just about like willpower.
Yeah.
There's some real psychology going on.
Uh-huh.
One of the biggest culprits is preconceived notions.
Ooh.
And this is something that Mastering the Art of Listening talks a lot about.
Okay.
So think about it for a second.
Okay.
Our brains love shortcuts.
Yeah, they do.
They're wired for efficiency.
Makes sense.
So we enter conversations with all this baggage,
What?
We have pre-existing beliefs. We filter information to confirm what we already think.
Yeah.
And this can lead to huge misunderstandings and derail conversations completely.
Oh, I am so guilty of that.
I think we all are.
It's like I've already written the script in my head before the other person even opens their mouth.
Exactly. And that's where the problem comes in.
So if we know this is happening, how do we combat that?
Yeah. How do we actually overcome it?
Yeah.
So the guide offers a bunch of practical techniques, and we'll dive into those later.
Okay.
But the first step is just being aware of it. Like once you realize that your brain is taking that shortcut, you can start to question your own assumptions.
Okay.
So ask yourself, am I really open to what this person is saying?
Yeah, am I really listening?
Or am I just waiting for my turn to speak?
That is a great question to ask.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And definitely something that I'll be thinking about more from now on.
Me too.
So besides those preconceived notions, are there any other things that get in the way of us being really good listeners?
Oh yeah, there are tons.
Okay, hit me.
So Mastering the Art of Listening calls them barriers to effective listening.
Okay.
And it gives a laundry list.
Uh-huh.
So think about all the distractions in your environment.
Right.
There's noise interruptions, your phone buzzing in your pocket.
Yeah, all those notifications.
Exactly. And then there are internal barriers too,
Okay, like what?
like selective listening, where we're only tuning into the things that confirm what we already believe,
Right.
or those emotional reactions that cloud our judgment.
Ooh, yeah, selective listening. I'm so guilty of that one,
It's a tough one.
especially when it's a topic that I feel really strongly about.
Yeah, and I think those emotional reactions can really hijack a conversation.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. The guide even points out things like lack of interest,
Okay.
being physically tired, or even cultural differences can impact how we listen.
Wow. So it's like a whole army of listening gremlins
It really is.
that we're up against.
Yeah,
Okay, so it sounds like we're fighting an uphill battle here.
true.
But thankfully, mastering the art of listening doesn't just give us the challenges.
Right.
It also gives us some tools to actually combat them
Uh-huh.
so we can become better listeners, right?
That's the whole point.
Okay, good.
And one of the keys is understanding how listening works,
Okay.
the whole process of listening. So mastering the art of listening breaks it down into 5 stages:
Okay.
receiving understanding, remembering, evaluating, and responding.
5 stages. Okay. I'm a very visual learner.
Okay.
So is there like an analogy that we could use to kind of picture that?
Yeah, I think so. What if we think about it like catching a ball?
Okay, like that.
So you see the ball coming towards you that's receiving the information.
Okay.
You grasp it, that's understanding.
Uh-huh.
Then you hold on to it, that's remembering.
Right.
Then you decide whether to keep the ball or throw it back, that's evaluating.
Good.
And finally, you take action either keeping it or tossing it back. That's responding.
Wow, I love that analogy.
Yeah, it captures it pretty well.
Yeah, it really does. So out of those 5 stages, does mastering the art of listening really emphasize any of them as like being more important?
Yeah, they place a lot of emphasis on remembering. Because if you can't retain the information, then all those other stages become way less effective.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it even digs into ways to improve your memory,
Right?
especially connecting new information to stuff you already know.
So it's like building those mental pathways.
Exactly. Imagine your brain like a giant web.
Uh-huh.
The more connections you create, the easier it is to recall information later on.
I love that visual. Yeah.
So this is where the guide really gets into like how to level up our listening game.
It does.
Okay, I'm ready to unlock some of those secrets.
All right. Mastering the art of listening has a whole section dedicated to techniques for enhancing your listening skills. And there are some real gems in there.
Okay, I'm ready. Hit me with those gems. What are some of those key takeaways?
So it covers a range of techniques from the practical stuff like minimizing distractions to the more subtle stuff like paying attention to nonverbal cues.
Okay.
For example, it stresses using verbal cues to signal that you're following along.
Okay.
Like saying, I hear you, or that makes sense. It seems small,
Yeah.
but it can really make the speaker feel validated,
Okay.
and it encourages them to keep sharing.
You know, I never thought about it that way.
Really?
I never thought about how like those little acknowledgments
Uh-huh.
could really have such a big impact.
Yeah, it's like you're sending a signal that you're present and engaged.
I like that.
What else does it recommend?
Well, it dives into paraphrasing. So putting what the speaker said into your own words.
Okay.
You're not only showing them that you understand, but you're also clarifying any potential misunderstandings.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, and then there's asking clarifying questions.
Okay.
Those aren't just about getting more information. They also show that you're trying to grasp their perspective and delve deeper into the topic.
I'm starting to realize how much I've been missing out on by not using these techniques.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's like I've been playing this listening game on easy mode, and now I'm ready to level up.
That's the spirit.
Yeah.
And mastering the art of listening provides the perfect roadmap for that journey.
I'm feeling inspired.
Good.
But before we go full-on listening ninja,
Right.
let's pause here for a second because this is a lot to digest,
I agree.
and I want to make sure that everybody listening is on board.
Yeah, let's take a break.
Before we move on to those advanced techniques,
Sounds good. We'll be right back to dive even deeper into this world of listening mastery.
right, see you in a bit. All right, so we're back, and we are ready to level up our listening game.
Yes.
Before the break, we were talking about active listening and all of those like barriers that get in the way.
All those listening gremlins.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But mastering the art of listening doesn't stop there.
No, it doesn't.
It takes us deeper into these things that it calls advanced listening techniques. And this is where things start to get really interesting.
This is where we get into the good stuff.
Okay, yeah.
So it's not just one way to listen, you know.
Right.
It's about choosing the right approach depending on what the situation calls for.
Okay.
And the guide dives into 2 really powerful techniques:
Okay.
empathetic listening and critical listening.
Okay, so empathetic listening and critical listening, is this like
Yeah,
listening with your heart versus listening with your head?
you got it.
Okay.
So think of empathetic listening as like the ultimate connection builder. It's all about stepping into the speaker's shoes.
Okay.
Really feeling what they're feeling, seeing the world through their eyes.
So it's less about offering solutions
Yes.
and more about creating a safe space for them to express themselves.
Exactly.
Without judgment.
Mastering the art of listening reminds us that sometimes people just need to feel heard and understood, not fixed or advised.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Okay, so if empathetic listening is all heart, where does critical listening fit into this?
Yeah, it sounds a little harsher, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
It's more about analysis.
Okay.
So critical listening is your secret weapon when you need to make a smart decision.
Okay.
It's about analyzing information, spotting those hidden biases,
Right.
and forming your own opinion based on the evidence.
So you're not just going with your gut.
Exactly.
It's more about like being objective.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like putting on your detective hat.
I like that.
Carefully examining all the facts, not just accepting everything you hear at face value.
But how do you become a better critical listener?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Does mastering the art of listening have any tips for that?
Yeah, it really stresses the importance of knowing your own biases. We all have them, whether we realize it or not.
That is very true.
So it encourages you to ask yourself, is this information credible?
Okay.
Does it logically hold up? Are there any gaps in the evidence?
Wow.
So it's about training your mind to look for the full picture,
That's so important.
not just the parts that confirm what you already believe.
Right, because it's so easy to fall into that trap of only hearing what you want to hear.
It is.
But thinking about this idea of critical listening is making me think that there's a time and a place for both of these approaches.
Absolutely.
So you use empathetic listening for building those relationships and critical listening for making those informed decisions.
You nailed it.
Okay.
And sometimes you might even find yourself switching back and forth between the two. So imagine you're in a brainstorming meeting at work.
Okay.
You might use critical listening to analyze the ideas and weigh the pros and cons. But then if a colleague shares something personal or expresses some frustration, that's when you would switch to empathetic listening.
Yeah, to show your support.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah, it's like having different tools in your listening toolbox, knowing which one to use depending on the situation.
And Mastering the Art of Listening talks about a couple more listening techniques.
It does.
It mentions comprehensive listening and deep listening.
Yes, those are like the black belts of the listening world.
Ooh. Okay, tell me more about these black belt techniques.
So comprehensive listening is about seeing the whole picture.
Okay.
It's about connecting all the dots, grasping the main ideas, and all the supporting details.
So it's like you're a puzzle solver.
Yes.
But for listening.
Exactly.
Okay, what about deep listening then?
This is where it gets really interesting. Deep listening goes way beyond just the words that are being spoken. It's about tuning into those unspoken messages.
Right, like reading between the lines.
Yes, exactly. Those subtle cues in someone's tone of voice or their body language.
Because so much of communication is nonverbal.
It really is.
And sometimes those unspoken messages
Yeah.
can reveal way more than words ever could.
Absolutely. And mastering the art of listening describes deep listening as a way of being fully present in the moment.
Okay.
Quieting your own mind to really connect with the other person's experience.
That sounds almost meditative.
It is.
Like a practice in mindfulness.
Yes, very much so.
But how practical is all this? I mean, I get that these techniques are important,
Yeah.
but how do they actually play out in real life?
That's a great question.
Like, how can we use them in different settings?
Yeah, like at work or at home.
Exactly.
Well, Mastering the Art of Listening has a section on that called Listening in Specific Contexts.
Perfect. Tell me more about that.
So it explores how these core listening skills that we've been talking about can be adapted to all sorts of situations.
Okay.
Professional meetings, social gatherings, even cross-cultural communication.
So it's not about learning a whole new set of skills for each situation.
No.
It's more about applying those core principles of active listening
Exactly.
in a way that's appropriate for the context.
Right, and it highlights some specific strategies for different contexts.
Okay.
So, for example, think about professional meetings.
Okay.
The guide emphasizes being prepared beforehand.
Okay.
Like reviewing the agenda, gathering your materials, and mentally prepping yourself.
Oh, you're ready to go.
Yes,
Yeah.
to be fully present and engaged.
I got it.
And then during the meeting, it encourages active participation.
Okay.
Sharing your thoughts, building on other people's ideas, but also paying attention to those nonverbal cues.
Like making eye contact and nodding to show that you're listening.
Exactly. It's about showing respect for everyone in the room.
That makes a lot of sense. But what about social settings? Like when you're just hanging out with friends or family, how does mastering the art of listening suggest we use these skills then?
So in those situations, it really emphasizes showing genuine interest in what other people have to say.
Okay.
So asking open-ended questions, inviting people to share more about themselves and their experiences.
So shifting the focus from yourself to the other person.
Yes, and truly listening to their stories, not just waiting for your turn to talk.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to get caught up in our own lives and forget to really listen to the people that we care about.
It happens to the best of us.
It really does. But what about those super challenging situations?
Like what?
Like what if you're dealing with someone who's difficult to listen to? Maybe they ramble on and on, or they constantly interrupt.
Right.
Does mastering the art of listening offer any advice for handling those tricky conversations?
It does. It has a whole section on overcoming common listening challenges.
Okay, I need to hear this because we all encounter those difficult speakers from time to time.
We do.
So what does it recommend?
Well, first and foremost, it emphasizes staying calm and patient.
Okay.
It's easy to get frustrated or defensive when someone's being difficult.
Yeah.
But that just makes the situation worse.
Right.
The key is to take a deep breath. Maintain your composure. Focus on the message.
Okay.
Not the messenger.
Yeah, that's a good reminder.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in the emotions of the moment.
It is.
But taking that pause to center yourself can really make all the difference.
It can.
But what if staying calm isn't enough? Like what if someone's being disrespectful or constantly interrupting?
Right.
How do you assert yourself without being rude?
Yeah, so mastering the art of listening recommends using assertive communication to set boundaries in a respectful way.
Gotcha.
So, for example, if someone's always interrupting, you could say something like, I'm really interested in hearing your perspective, but I'd appreciate it if you could let me finish my thought first.
Okay.
Or if someone's being super negative or critical, you could say, I understand your concerns, but I'd like to focus on finding solutions rather than dwelling on the problems.
Those are great examples.
Yeah.
It's about being clear and direct without being aggressive or shutting down the conversation.
Exactly.
What about language barriers? The guide mentioned that as a challenge.
It did.
Like, what if you're trying to listen to someone who speaks a different language or has an accent that's hard to understand?
Right.
Does it have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, it offers some helpful strategies for those situations. So it suggests speaking slowly and clearly, using simple language, avoiding jargon, and even incorporating visual aids, like images or diagrams, to help bridge that communication gap.
Those are really good tips.
Yeah.
It sounds like patience and empathy are key in the situations.
They really are.
Both parties need to be willing to put in the effort to make the communication work.
Absolutely.
Honestly, one of the biggest listening challenges I face is information overload.
Yeah.
We are constantly bombarded with information from all directions.
It's true.
Social media news, emails, notifications. It's enough to make your head spin.
It really is.
So how does mastering the art of listening suggest we cope with all that input?
So the guide stresses being mindful of how much information you're taking in. It encourages taking breaks when you need to avoid feeling overwhelmed and setting boundaries with technology.
Like turning off those notifications or having certain times where you check email and social media.
Yeah, create those boundaries.
That's such good advice.
It is.
Because it's so easy to get sucked into that endless stream of information.
It really is.
But we need to be intentional about what we're consuming and how much time we're spending on it. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here with these listening challenges.
Yeah, we have.
But I'm sensing that there's still more to uncover here. It feels like mastering the art of listening is building towards something bigger, something beyond just the techniques and strategies.
You're picking up on something really important. So it's not just about acquiring skills, it's about embracing a whole new mindset. A way of being in the world that prioritizes understanding, connection, and empathy.
Okay, I am hooked. Tell me more about this shift in mindset.
So when you truly master the art of listening,
Yeah.
It's not just about hearing the words.
Yeah.
It's about tuning into that deeper meaning.
Okay.
The unspoken emotions, the intentions behind the words.
It's like you're moving from just hearing to deeply understanding.
Exactly.
Both the person and the message.
Yes.
And you're saying that this kind of deep, intentional listening, it could actually have ripple effects throughout our lives, making us better partners, better friends, even more successful in our careers.
Absolutely. Mastering the art of listening really explores all those benefits in detail.
Okay, so before we get into those ripple effects, let's take a quick pause to let all this sink in.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back to unpack how listening can really transform your life. All right, so we're back and ready to explore how mastering this art of listening can, transform your life.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff.
So before the break, we were talking about how mastering the art of listening goes beyond just those techniques and strategies. It's like it wants you to shift your whole mindset about listening, to see it as a way of being in the world, not just like a set of skills to learn.
It's a way of life.
Okay, so I'm all in on that idea, but how exactly does it explain these ripple effects?
Yeah.
Like, what are the actual benefits of becoming a really great listener?
Well, one of the first things it talks about is how good listening can strengthen your relationships.
Okay, that makes sense.
Think about it when you feel truly heard and understood by someone. It creates the sense of trust and connection.
Yeah.
And mastering the art of listening says that this is the foundation for deeper, more meaningful relationships. It's like you're giving the gift of presence and understanding to the people in your life.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And it's not just our personal relationships that benefit, right?
Right.
The guide also talks about how strong listening skills can be a total game changer for your career.
Absolutely. It really emphasizes how vital communication is in the workplace.
Okay, so I'm curious about this. How does being a good listener actually translate into those career benefits? Does it really make that much of a difference?
Think about it this way. When you're a good listener, you're able to gather information more accurately.
Okay.
You understand different perspectives and you build consensus more effectively.
That's true.
And mastering the art of listening says these skills can make you a much more valuable asset to your team.
So it's not just about avoiding those misunderstandings.
Right.
It's about actually using listening as a tool to get better results at work.
Exactly. And it can even lead to more creativity and innovation.
Oh, wow.
Because when you really listen to your colleagues' ideas, you're more likely to come up with new ideas of your own and find those outside-the-box solutions to problems.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what about personal growth then? How does mastering this art of listening help us grow as individuals?
So mastering the art of listening suggests that deep listening can help you develop greater self-awareness.
Okay.
So by paying attention to how other people perceive you, you can get some really valuable insights into your own strengths and weaknesses.
Stuff like you're getting feedback from the world around you.
Yeah.
Not just like direct criticism.
Right.
But through those subtle cues in how people respond to you.
Exactly. It's like holding up a mirror to yourself.
I love that.
But the reflection is coming from everyone you interact with.
And by listening to all sorts of different perspectives, you're also expanding your own horizons, right?
Yes.
Challenging your assumptions,
Yeah.
becoming more open-minded and compassionate.
It's like your mind becomes more flexible and adaptable,
I like that.
able to hold more complexity.
Yeah, and ultimately, mastering the art of listening suggests that all of this leads to a more fulfilling and meaningful life. Okay, I love that idea, but how exactly does that work? Like, how does being a good listener actually make your life better?
Well, think about the things that bring us joy and meaning.
Okay.
Genuine connection, deep understanding, authentic relationships. When you really listen to others, you're opening yourself up to all of that.
Yeah.
You're less likely to misinterpret things, more likely to empathize, and better equipped to deal with all those ups and downs of relationships.
So it's not just about the information we receive.
Right.
It's also about the quality of our interactions and how deeply we connect with the people around us.
Exactly. And those connections are at the heart of a fulfilling life.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
It has.
I feel like I have a whole new appreciation for the power of listening.
Me too.
So before we wrap things up,
Yeah.
is there one final takeaway from mastering the art of listening?
Yeah, it challenges you to consider deep listening not just as a technique, but as a way of life.
Wow.
So when you approach every interaction with a genuine desire to understand, to connect, to learn, you open yourself up to a world of possibilities.
That is powerful.
It is.
It's not just about improving our communication skills. It's about transforming how we relate to the world and everyone in it.
I love that.
And I think that's the perfect note to end on. So as we wrap up this deep dive into mastering the art of listening, I want to leave you with this final thought.
Okay.
What if you started paying attention to all those unspoken messages? Those subtle cues, the emotions, the things that people don't say out loud.
Yeah.
How might that change your conversations?
How might it deepen your connections?
And how might it transform your life?
Keep listening. Keep exploring and keep deepening those connections.
That's great advice. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into mastering the art of listening.
And remember, good listening leads to better understanding, stronger connections, and ultimately a more fulfilling life.